the first thing to do is to put the meat in a heavy-duty skillet like this. It's an iron skillet. And then it's a pound and a half of hamburger. And I always add another ½ pound of sausage to make it more tasty. And then you have to saute it until it gets crumbly, like it's doing right now. And then after it's fairly crumbly like this and you don't see any more pink in it, then it's time to add the onion. So I have a ½ cup of onion, and I'll put that in now. And then keep cooking it. And then also, besides just the ½ cup of onion, the recipe does not call for this, but I have found that it tastes better if I put in some onion powder. And this is not the regular onion soup that you find at the market, but it is a one that I find at a bulk food store. And this is what it looks like. It's just a powdered onion. And I'll put about almost 2 tablespoons in. I'll give it a really good flavor. So we're going to cook the onion in there for a little bit. And then next ingredient is some salt and pepper. And then after the salt and pepper, we're going to put in 3 cups of cabbage, shredded very finely. So this is looking pretty good. I'll add the salt and the pepper now. So it's a teaspoon and a half of salt. And a ½ teaspoon of pepper. So I'm going to stir that in a little bit, and then we'll be able to add the cabbage. And then again, I mix it for a little while, and then turn the oven off, and the stove off, and let it sort of wilt in with the meat. And I usually try to fix this a day ahead of time so that the flavors get really established before I put it in the bread. This looks like a lot of cabbage, but it's going to just disintegrate. It's going to wilt rather than disintegrate. It's going to wilt, and it will look very nice inside the meat as time goes on. So this is a little trick to get that all mixed in, and then let it kind of cook for a little bit. And then I'll put the lid on and just let it continue to saute. And that's it for the make of the mixture. So it's really very easy to do. That I want you to know that I did ask some of the older sisters what their favorite or their staple German food was in their homes. And our 104 sister said it was bread, that her mother always made homemade bread. And then the next sister said it was Kuchen, 90-year-old. And she said that the Kuchen actually is like a big pan, almost a cookie sheet of bread, and then you spread on that different kinds of fruit, but only one fruit at a time. But And then you put some, we call it crumbles on top and bake it. And it's kind of like a Danish, only it's in a big tray. The third sister I asked was in her 80s, late 80s, and she said cabbage. Cabbage was a staple in their home. So everybody had a different point of view. And when I mentioned the Bierrocks, they all said this was something that came later in the German tradition, but it has gained popularity. So it's one of the things that people think of first when they're thinking of a nice meal to serve. So it is very nice because you have a little bit of bread and you have this nice meat. So it's like a meal in one all together. And so people like it a lot. And they sell a lot of it at different events. So you see that's mixed in pretty well. It's going to cook a little bit, and before long you'll hardly even notice that it's in there because it will blend in with all the other things. And then it says to put in a dash of Tabasco, and that is actually to bring out the flavor. But instead of Tabasco, I use cayenne pepper. Works the same way. And the cayenne pepper actually brings the flavor out even better. So I go very sparse on it. You don't have to use very much. I'll probably use about, this is 1/4 of a teaspoon. I'll probably use about half a teaspoon, and so it's not much at all. And it will give it, just kind of subtly bring out the flavors. So then this will cool, and then when it cools, it's ready to put into the pockets. We're going to make the bread and the pockets. The meat goes inside the bread, and then you put it together, and it makes a little pocket. And so we'll do that, and you'll see how that works. So you cook this for just a little while, and you see that the cabbage really melts kind of into the thing. And it's kind of a guess about how long, because it just takes a little bit for that cabbage to cook. And then we're going to put the lid on, and then the cabbage will continue to cook for a little while. So. And then when you put it in the pockets, it's going to bake again. So there really isn't, I don't think you can have any problem with it being raw or anything. It just will definitely cook itself the way it needs to. This is a mandolin, and this is how I shredded the cabbage real fine. And the other thing that I do with the onions is that I use it in a very tiny little food processor. And these are onions from our own farm. And I grind them up in the little tiny food processor, and it goes very quickly.
You are ready.
So we're going to put together the Bierrocks today. And we will use a 1/2 cup of warm tap water. So we want to measure that out. And then we're going to put in 2 tablespoons of dry yeast. And I keep my yeast in the freezer so it stays fresh all the time. And because I do a lot of baking, it's not a problem. Some people would put this in a small container and let it foam. I put mine right inside the bowl that I'm going to mix with. I can see that it's already melting and becoming integrated. And so the next step is to add the warm milk. And so I need 1.5 cups of warm milk. So I have 1.5 cups of milk from the fridge. So I will put that in the microwave and warm it. While that's warming, I will put my 1/2 cup of shortening in another Pyrex because it needs to get melted. I shouldn't use my fingers, but I do. I'm going to finger test it, see if it's just the right amount, and it is. It's just nice and warm. So I add that. Then the next thing to do is to add the sugar so that the yeast will start to ferment better with the sugar, because that's what feeds the yeast. And it's 1/2 cup. You stir that up. Melting the shortening. And then we prepare the eggs. There are 2 eggs that go in. These are eggs from our chickens. Nice orange yolks. Okay, well, they put the shortening in. Stir it up. And then the eggs can go in. I have set them outside the fridge so they're a little bit warmer than just fridge temperature. And so the warm shortening will be just fine, because you don't want it too hot. If you have it too hot, it cooks the yeast, and that will not raise that way. So now we need 2 teaspoons of salt. This is my little salt box. And I'll put the 2 teaspoons of salt in. And then everything is in there that we need except the flour. So the flour goes next. And it's 6 to 7 cups of flour. So I will put a few cups in, and then my helper will continue making the dough. I'm having an issue with some tendinitis in my hands these days. So it's a temporary situation, but I will need help to do this. So we're going to continue with my helper until it gets a little stiff, then she's going to take over. So that's 2 cups. So we'll put in 3. my helper is going to take over now. And this is Tara. Where are you, Tara? Okay, this is Tara.
Wash my hands.
Okay, wash the hands first. That's important. And so this is the 4th cup. So you can continue from there. Okay.
We're going for 6.
Yes.
Should I put in the whole 6th cup? Or
Did you start at 4 or did you start at 5?
I think you gave me at the 4th cup, so this is the 5th cup that just went in.
Okay.
You want me to do the whole 6th or kind of see how it goes?
Oh, absolutely. It says 6 to 7.
Okay.
So
Definitely
you may need all of them, you may not. This is dough that can be used also for cinnamon rolls and Kuchen, which is the German dish I talked about yesterday with like a Danish, and it can be done for it could be used for dinner rolls. It has many uses that this particular dough would be good for, and it was a recipe given to us by a Mennonite family, and it's proven to be the best one I've found so far.
Can I knead now?
Yeah, yeah. And we'll see, we probably don't need a full cup, but let's try a bit more. I think you're going to have a little bit more to see how that goes. Still a little sticky.
It's a little sticky.
Yeah, you need a little bit more flour, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We're aiming for it to still be kind of sticky, but just
Yes.
just enough that it's
Just
not sticking
enough,
to my
yeah.
hands.
Right. Just enough so it doesn't stick to you, but it has to be light. You don't want it really, really thick. And you want to put it out on the counter, we can. This is a beautiful counter to bake and cook with. It's Formica, and it's where we do our workshops and our teaching. Good. I'll scrape this out with a scoop. This is a baker's dream. feeling good?
Feeling good.
Okay.
Starting to get smoother. Not sticking anymore.
You need just a tiny bit or not?
Just a tiny bit more flour, I think.
Just to kind of
Just to keep it from
to
sticking
knead
to
it,
the
yeah,
table.
not from sticking. After you bake bread for a while, you can tell by the feel of it just exactly the way it should be. And Tara has made bread before, so she knows, and so do I. I've made plenty of bread. Yeah, for the farmer's market, lots of it. Let me feel it. I think we're ready. Yeah,
Right.
And so to put it in back in this bowl, I add a little bit of olive oil so it won't stick. And so then mix that around. You put the dough in, you turn it upside down so that you have some of the oil on top. And then we're going to set it over there on, it says a warm place, but what I have is a seed tray that's heated. And it's just the right amount to raise seeds for the garden, but it works perfect for bread. It's a very minimal heat. And then I'll cover that. You go ahead and put it over there.
A lot of times I use the top of my oven.
What I do with my cover is I warm it in the microwave. Just till it's warm, so that they both are very warm, and then they'll raise very nicely. So we have to wait now to about 45 minutes. 45 minutes to an hour, and then it'll be ready to roll out, and we can make our Bierrocks. It's just barely warm. So we're going to make a little package out of it, and in 45 minutes or so it will be ready to roll out. So what we're going to do is you mix this, and the reason that you mix it and knead it just a little bit is because the top will be cool, the bottom will be warm, and you want to mix that so that it raises just properly. So you go ahead and mix that, and then we'll start rolling out the dough. And then you're going to take half of the dough and roll it out first, and then we'll make...
So mix in my bowl.
Yeah.
It was a lot warmer on the bottom.
Yes, it is. Makes a big difference when you mix it because the top is too cool, the bottom's too warm, and you really need to mix it well. And I do that with all my breads because that's what happens is it gets cool on top.
Okay, feels about the same temperature throughout.
Okay, then go ahead and take half of it. And we need to pour out some flour here, so just a tiny little bit so you can start rolling. You don't need a whole lot because you don't want it too whatever you call it, I don't know. Yeah. So you're going to, well, that as thin as we can get it without, and you know, once in a while you have to flip it over.
Am I aiming for a square or a rectangle?
We're going to do 5-inch squares, and I have a little rule here to measure it. So. Just to let you know, this table has been washed and scrubbed before we started off, so we had to keep everything clean and sanitary. Let's flip it over and see what we, rub just a little bit of flour on there. And continue on. Take a while to get there. So we've rolled the dough out. So now we're going to just kind of cut the edges off so we have straight edges, because we're going to make these 5 by 5. And then we're going to put the meat dough on the, let's try this and see how far we go here with this. That would be 5. And another 5. So we're going to get a few out of this, and so what we're going to do is there'll be a few on this one, and maybe, oh yeah, there we go. There'll be a couple at least. Then we have to go this way, 5. So I'm going to do these single because they're each a different shape here. And this, see how long that is. What was that number? It's a 7, not very good. So we'll just do a 5 here. Unfortunately. All right, we'll re-roll this later. Okay. Perfect. So what we can do is go ahead and put let me cut them all first, because then it'll be a lot easier to put the meat on all at once. So this is 5. 5 and 5. That's too small. Actually, we might be able to just roll it out a little bit more after a bit and put some on there after all. And 5 and 5. I think we can do that. If you want to bring the meat over the mixture.
Does it need a hot pan?
It's warm, but it's not hot.
So I can just sit it.
Yeah, just put it here on the counter. I think we'll be okay. And then bring the spoon. No, the other one. Thank you. So what you're going to do is use either 2 regular tablespoons, or you use 1 very large serving spoon. You're going to put a really nice batch right there in the middle, like so. And then when you get that on, let me have go get a rag, and you can put this together like a little pocket. Like so. Thank you. Just lay it there. And then we snip all of these ends together like this, so that hopefully it won't leak out, but sometimes it does anyway, but it still tastes good. And so when we get that little pocket made, we turn it upside down and make it kind of in a little bun, and that goes onto the tray. So we're going to do all of these, and then we'll put it over to raise, and then we'll bake them, and then we can see our finished product. So we have 8 of these done, and we're going to put them over on the stove that has a real low temperature, and they're going to raise for about 15 minutes. And then we will, I'm going to time it. And then we'll put them in the oven at 350. So in a little bit, we'll have to turn the oven up so it's the right temperature. In the meanwhile, I'm going to cover them so they stay warm. They're all tucked in. So they're raised now after 15 minutes, and so we're going to put them in the oven and bake them for 20 to 30 minutes. These are out of the oven. I put a little butter on top to make them shiny and mellow. And when they get cool, we will cut one in half and show you how it looks. And we'll have a couple people here who can taste them, and we'll see what they taste like. How's that? A couple people here who will taste these and see how they are. So this is how it looks. You can have either more or less bread on the bottom or the top, and this one has a little bit of a thicker bottom, but it's perfectly fine. So here are two ladies who can test these, and then you can come over here and have a piece and see what your opinion is. I like to put mustard on mine when I have them, but some people like them plain. And the meat should be pretty tasty, so we'll see here what they think. It's a little bit warm, is it? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good.
You like it? Mm-hmm. Good. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody, I mean, they're just very popular, so most people really, really enjoy them. So we're going to have some tomorrow for lunch. Ooh. So, oops. That's kind of the end of it. And the recipe for this amount of meat that I had made 32. Now, in normal circumstances, I will make a lot. Like I would double that recipe, so it'll make like 60. And then we freeze them and then use them for different things later on, either individually or as a group again. So we're going to have them for lunch tomorrow, so that'll be good.